Hashtag the silent graveyard. The night was cold and still as Mark wandered through the old cemetery, its iron gates creaking shut behind him. He had heard the stories about the silent graveyard, a place where no sound existed, but he didn't believe in such things. He was a skeptic, a man of reason. Still, curiosity had brought him here, deep into the woods where the forgotten cemetery lay, bathed in an unnatural mist. As Mark walked through the crumbling headstones, he noticed the eerie quiet. There was no wind rustling the leaves, no insects buzzing in the air, no distant hum of life. Even the sound of his own footsteps seemed to fade away the moment they hit the ground. It was as if the very air had swallowed every noise. It unnerved him, but he pressed on, deeper into the fog-shrouded graveyard. He had heard the local legend, a widow whose husband had gone off to war never returned. She wandered the graveyard for years, calling his name, but she lost her voice from grief. When she died, they buried her in the cemetery, and ever since, no sound had touched the place. The townspeople said her spirit cursed it, silencing the world around her as she continued to search for her lost love. Mark shook off the unease creeping over him. Legends were just stories, after all, tales meant to scare children. He stopped at an ancient oak tree in the center of the graveyard and leaned against a headstone, pulling out his phone to check the time. His heart skipped a beat when he realized his phone screen was frozen, the clock stuck at midnight. Suddenly, he felt it, a cold, icy breath on the back of his neck. He spun around, but no one was there. His pulse quickened, yet the silence remained unbroken. Panic started to rise in his chest as he noticed movement in the mist, a shadow gliding between the graves. The figure was barely visible, a faint outline of a woman draped in black. She moved silently, her face hidden beneath a dark veil. Mark tried to shout, but no sound escaped his lips. He ran, his feet pounding against the earth, but there was no noise, no echo of his frantic steps. The mist thickened, and the figure followed, her presence growing closer with every passing second. Desperately, he reached the gate and yanked at the rusted iron bars, but they wouldn't budge. He was trapped. Behind him, the figure loomed closer, her veil lifting to reveal a pale, hollow face. Her mouth opened, and though Mark could hear nothing, he could see her lips moving, mouthing words he couldn't understand. She pointed to a grave, freshly dug, dirt still loose and unsettled. His grave! The realization hit him like a cold wave of dread. Mark fell to his knees, his breath frozen in his throat as the woman's cold fingers touched his shoulder. The last thing he saw before the darkness claimed him was her face, a face of endless sorrow, her eyes filled with the grief of 1,000 lifetimes. Then, the silence swallowed him whole, just as it had swallowed the voices of the forgotten before him. And in that graveyard, nothing but silence would ever remain.